The gate agent's voice, saccharine with fake sympathy, delivered the news like a perfectly wrapped box of razor blades. We regret to inform you that Flight 747 to Aspen has been canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. My mother, standing beside me, a woman whose entire worldview was encapsulated by the phrase, tough love, immediately turned, her eyes narrowed. "Well, Amelia," she declared, a challenge in every syllable, "looks like you'll have to walk home." The other passengers groaned, but I felt a strange, cold calm descend. She didn't know, of course. She couldn't possibly fathom the irony. Because the truth was, at that very moment, I didn't just have a ticket for a canceled flight. I owned the airline. I owned the tarmac. I owned the gates, the terminals, and the very ground beneath our feet. I'm Amelia Vance, and this wasn't just a canceled flight. It was the perfectly orchestrated opening act of my long-awaited, meticulously planned revenge. My mother, Eleanor Vance, was a force of nature, beautiful, brilliant, and utterly unyielding. From my earliest memories, her mantra had been self-reliance, taken to an extreme that bordered on emotional cruelty. When I was 7 and lost my favorite teddy bear at the park, she told me to go back and find it myself, even as dusk fell. When I was 16 and needed a ride to a crucial scholarship interview, she handed me bus fare, stating, "A true leader finds her own way." Her lessons often felt like abandonment, forging a deep chasm between us. Yet paradoxically, every time she pushed me away, she inadvertently fueled an internal fire, an unshakable resolve to not just survive, but to utterly dominate, to build a world where I could never be dismissed or disregarded again. I often wondered if she knew the monster she was creating, or if she simply thought she was chiseling a tougher version of herself. The airport itself held a profound significance. Vance International Airport wasn't just a travel hub. It was my father's dream, a legacy he poured his life into building, brick by laborious brick. He was a visionary, a kind man who counterbalanced my mother's severity. But his early, unexpected death when I was 12 left me at the mercy of Eleanor. She, inheriting a substantial but volatile stake in the burgeoning airport, became a cutthroat businesswoman overnight, transforming his vision into a cold, efficient profit machine. She sold off smaller, less profitable ventures, including the regional airline my father had founded, a move that always felt like a betrayal of his gentle spirit. The airport, once a symbol of my father's warmth, became a towering monument to my mother's ambition and my own simmering resentment. My chosen path through life was a deliberate, calculated divergence from my mother's. While she managed the tangible assets, I immersed myself in the intangible, data, algorithms, and the intricate web of global logistics. I earned scholarships to the best universities, not for her praise, but for my own intellectual hunger. I pursued degrees in AI development and complex systems engineering, disciplines she considered impractical. While she focused on tarmac and terminals, I saw the future in code, in the predictive analytics that could optimize every flight, every cargo load, every passenger experience. My quiet brilliance was my shield and my sword, growing sharper with every dismissive comment she uttered about my head-in-the-clouds pursuits. After graduating with honors, I didn't join a tech giant. Instead, I founded a small, anonymous startup, Skynet Logistics. Our core product was an AI-driven platform that could predict flight delays with unprecedented accuracy, optimize ground crew assignments, and even reroute cargo in real time to avoid bottlenecks. It was revolutionary. I worked relentlessly, driven by the memory of every dismissal, every walk-home directive. Skynet became the quiet, indispensable backbone for dozens of major international airlines, a silent force ensuring their seamless operation. My identity remained a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few trusted lieutenants. My mother, still running Vance International, had no idea that the brilliant, mysterious tech company making her airport run smoother was run by her own daughter. The opportunity for my revenge began to crystallize 2 years ago. My mother, in a bid to expand her empire, embarked on a colossal, debt-heavy project, a new, state-of-the-art international terminal. It was a massive gamble, consuming virtually all of Vance International's liquid assets and requiring immense high-interest loans. She overextended, driven by an insatiable need for validation and almost a pathological aversion to appearing weak. This was the precise moment I had been waiting for, the perfect blend of ambition and vulnerability. I knew that one significant setback could send her entire enterprise crashing down, and I intended to be the one holding the lever. Through a labyrinthine network of shell corporations and blind trusts, Nemesis Capital, my primary acquisition vehicle, began quietly buying up the distressed bonds issued by Vance International Airport. I did it slowly, meticulously, a predator circling its prey. My legal and financial teams were instructed to operate with absolute discretion, ensuring no direct link could be drawn back to me. The suspense of this period was immense. Every financial report from Vance International was scrutinized, every market fluctuation analyzed. I needed the company to be teetering on the brink, not entirely collapsed, but weak enough that one single, well-placed push would send it over the edge. My mother, ever focused on the grand public gestures, was oblivious to the quiet storm brewing in the shadows of her financial statements. My next move was to acquire a controlling interest in Aerostream, the struggling regional airline my mother had sold off years ago, the very airline my father had founded. It was a sentimental target, a wound from my childhood. Aerostream was a shadow of its former self, riddled with outdated planes and inefficient routes. But under the hood, my Skynet AI saw potential. We swiftly modernized its fleet through strategic leases, optimized its schedules using my proprietary algorithms, and injected it with new capital. Aerostream, once a symbol of my mother's ruthless efficiency, was becoming a lean, profitable competitor, quietly expanding its market share in the very regions Vance International neglected. The first public tremor hit when Aerostream, under my anonymous leadership, announced a groundbreaking partnership with several major airlines for a new, interconnected regional hub directly competing with Vance International's smaller feeder routes. The market reaction was swift. Vance International's stock dipped slightly, a minor blip for Eleanor, but a significant crack in the facade for me. The strong mid-story tension hooks were now being set, each one a thread in the net I was weaving. I meticulously ensured that every successive Aerostream was subtly amplified in financial news outlets, drawing a stark contrast to Vance International's spiraling debt for the new terminal. My mother, once again, was blind to the true source of her growing market woes. The canceled Flight 747 was not unforeseen circumstances. It was a deliberate, surgical strike. My Skynet AI, now deeply embedded in the logistical operations of dozens of airlines, including some that frequently flew out of Vance International, had identified a specific, critical vulnerability, a cascade of minor, seemingly unrelated operational issues, a small mechanical delay here, an air traffic control reroute there, were subtly amplified by strategically timed system glitches in the broader network. The result? An unavoidable, legitimate-looking operational bottleneck that forced the cancellation of key high-revenue flights, including the very flight my mother and I were booked on. It was a perfectly executed, legal, and untraceable act of corporate sabotage, designed to hit Vance International's already fragile finances. The financial blow was immediate and significant. High-profile cancellations meant refund payouts, rebooking expenses, and, most importantly, a severe hit to the airport's reputation, especially for its premium luxury routes. Immediately blamed the airline, unaware that the underlying network instability was orchestrated. Her desperation provided my next opportunity. Vance International stock plummeted. Not crashed, but significantly weakened. It was the perfect moment. Nemesis Capital, through its labyrinthine offshore entities, triggered the clauses in the distressed bonds it now controlled, demanding immediate repayment on specific, technical defaults. This was the moment I had planned for years. The escalating emotional pressure within me was a cold, exhilarating rush. The news of the bond defaults sent shockwaves through the financial world. Vance International Airport, once a symbol of stability, was suddenly teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. My mother, usually so composed, appeared on financial news channels, her face pale, her voice strained, attempting to reassure investors. Her familiar arrogance had been replaced by a desperate plea, a sight that brought me a grim, satisfying closure to decades of quiet suffering. I watched from my anonymous control room, surrounded by screens displaying real-time market data, the culmination of my life's work playing out before me. My walk home was now a direct path to the CEO's office. My legal team then delivered the final, devastating blow: a hostile takeover bid from Nemesis Capital, offering to buy Vance International Airport for a fraction of its true value, but enough to satisfy the immediate creditors and stave off total collapse. The condition? Eleanor Vance had to step down, immediately and permanently. The offer was a thinly veiled ultimatum, a direct consequence of her short-sightedness and ruthless ambition. The what happens next suspense for the market was immense, but for me it was the calm, methodical unfolding of a deeply personal prophecy. I knew she would fight, but I also knew she had nothing left to fight with. I remembered a moment from my childhood, just after my father died. My mother had dismissed my grief as weakness, telling me, "Tears don't build empires, Amelia." I had silently vowed that day to build an empire of my own, one built not on a physical fortress, but on the unassailable logic of data and the cold, hard currency of strategic foresight. My revenge wasn't just about taking her company. It was about proving her entire philosophy wrong. It was about showing her that true strength wasn't about denying emotion, but about channeling it, refining it, and using it as an unmatched fuel for relentless, patient ambition. Eleanor Vance, faced with financial ruin and the imminent dissolution of her entire empire, convened an emergency board meeting. She railed against the unknown predators, accusing them of market manipulation, but she couldn't prove a thing. Every move Nemesis Capital made was meticulously legal, leveraging the very opaque financial instruments she herself had once championed. The board, panicked by the impending bankruptcy, voted overwhelmingly to accept Nemesis Capital's offer. The silence after the vote was deafening, a palpable vacuum where her power once resided. The old chairman, a man who had worked with my father, simply shook his head, a look of profound sadness on his face. The official press release announced the successful acquisition of Vance International Airport by Nemesis Capital. My name, Amelia Vance, was conspicuously absent from the announcement, maintaining my anonymity. However, a small private message was sent to Eleanor Vance's personal encrypted email, a message only she would understand. "The walk home was long, Mother, but I got here, and now I own the road." The profound emotional storytelling of that moment, the years of silent suffering culminating in this singular cutting message, was more satisfying than any public triumph. The airport was mine, but the message was for her alone, a final, undeniable proof of my hard-won independence. I kept her on the board, a cruel, elegant touch, a public humiliation she couldn't escape. Her voting rights were stripped, her executive power evaporated. She became a silent, unwilling spectator to my command, forced to watch me dismantle her legacy and rebuild it in my own image. This was the ultimate twist, a near-ending cliff-style torture. She was forced to attend meetings, to sit across from the anonymous new owner's representatives, knowing that the empire she built on ruthlessness was now being controlled by a silent, unseen hand. Every decision I made, every new initiative, was a quiet, relentless reminder of her fall and my ascension. My first order of business as the de facto owner was to reverse many of her most egregious decisions. I reinstated the smaller regional routes, upgraded the local terminals, and, most symbolically, began negotiations to buy back Aerostream, the airline my father founded. This final act was a powerful emotional payoff, not just for me, but for the ghost of my father's legacy.
It was a tangible, public declaration that the heart and soul of Vance International Airport would return, no longer a cold profit machine, but a hub of connectivity and human aspiration, just as he had envisioned. The wheel had turned, and I, the neglected daughter, was now the architect of its future. I often wondered if my mother, sitting across the boardroom table, ever looked into my eyes during our public encounters and recognized the fierce determination she herself had instilled. She saw a successful, anonymous representative of Nemesis Capital, but I knew she sensed the depth of the vengeance. Her own face, once so imperious, now carried a perpetual shadow of defeat. The power of this silent internal warfare was immense, a constant, unspoken dialogue between past pain and present triumph. My vengeance was not loud or explosive. It was a slow, agonizing realization for her, a tightening noose of poetic justice. The true value of Vance International Airport, now mine, was not just its physical assets, but the vast data streams it generated. My Skynet AI, once an external contractor, was now fully integrated, optimizing every facet of the airport's operations, from baggage handling to air traffic flow. The improvements were immediate and dramatic. Customer satisfaction soared, operational costs plummeted, and profitability surged. It was undeniable proof that my impractical pursuits were in fact the keys to true sustainable success, a silent repudiation of every dismissive word my mother had ever uttered. The new terminal, the one that had almost bankrupted my mother, was repurposed and redesigned to be a beacon of technological innovation. I personally oversaw its transformation, ensuring every detail reflected my vision of efficiency, sustainability, and passenger comfort. This was not just an airport, it was a statement. It was my statement. The escalating emotional pressure of the years of planning had now transformed into the immense satisfaction of creation, the joy of building something truly magnificent on the ashes of her failed ambition. The final public acknowledgement came from an unexpected source. Robert Vance, my father's oldest friend and business partner, now a respected elder statesman in the aviation industry. He publicly praised the new leadership of Vance International, noting the return to its founding principles and human-centric innovation. He spoke of a spirit of renewal and a bright future. He didn't know I was Amelia, but his words were a balm to my long-wounded soul, a powerful validation that echoed my father's gentle integrity. The memory of my mother telling me to walk home still occasionally surfaced, but now it was a whisper, not a shout. It was a reminder of how far I had come, not of what I had lost. The strong mid-story tension hooks that defined my climb had faded, replaced by a confident, unwavering clarity of purpose. I had taken her company, yes, but more importantly, I had reclaimed my own narrative, writing myself as the victor, not the victim. I scheduled a small, private ceremony for the rededication of the old Aerostream hangar, the place where my father had first tinkered with his planes. I invited no press, no grand dignitaries, just a few old mechanics who had worked for him, and myself. It was a quiet moment of profound emotional storytelling, a silent conversation with my father's memory. I placed a small silver plaque there, bearing only his name and the words, "He built dreams, we fly them."
Retired. Her public statement was brief, terse, devoid of emotion. She never acknowledged me, never apologized. But I saw the shift in her eyes over those months, the flicker of respect, perhaps even a grudging understanding of the formidable force she had unleashed. That silent acknowledgement, earned through years of relentless effort, was a powerful personal payoff. The what happens next for me was no longer about revenge, but about legacy. I dedicated myself to making Vance International Airport a global leader in ethical, sustainable, and technologically advanced aviation. My personal journey had transformed from a dark pursuit of vengeance to a bright path of constructive leadership. I had shown my mother that true power doesn't come from pushing people away, but from empowering them, from seeing the value in every individual, just as my father had.
The airport became a testament to my father's vision and my own quiet strength. The hum of jet engines, once a symbol of my mother's cold empire, now sang a different tune, a symphony of human connection, innovation, and unwavering resilience. The very place where she had once told me to walk home was now my home, my empire, built brick by calculated brick, algorithm by elegant algorithm. The canceled flight wasn't a setback. It was the final, perfect push. It forced her hand, revealed her vulnerability, and allowed me to step into my rightful place. My powerful final emotional payoff was not just owning the airport, but owning myself, free from the chains of resentment, free to build a future guided by my own values, a future where no one, especially not a small, determined girl, would ever have to walk home alone again. If you like this video and want more stories, please like, subscribe, and support the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.